everyone. My name is Dr. Saliha Afridi, and I am a clinical psychologist and the managing director of the Lighthouse Arabia. Today we will be speaking about self-awareness and how that is actually deeply linked to our authentic sense of happiness, a sense of authentic happiness. So that's what we will be talking about today, and I really look forward to having you all. Some of you have sent me some questions. I'm going to make sure that I actually respond to those questions also. So let's get started. We have 30 minutes, so we don't have a lot of time, and I have to cover the topic of self-awareness, which is in itself so big, but I will do the best I can, inshallah. So let's talk a little bit about what self-awareness is, because oftentimes people think self-awareness is introspection or being really, like rumination sometimes is confused with self-awareness. And I'm thinking about myself a lot, so I must be very self-aware, which is not what self-awareness is. Self-awareness is knowing yourself. It is knowing your likes and dislikes. Sure, you can know that you like to travel, or you like this friend, or you prefer this type of person to hang out with, but that's not it. That is a very superficial layer of self-awareness. Really knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, knowing about what are some of the things inside of you that you don't like. What are some of the things inside of you that you don't have a lot of control over? We all have those things. I also have mentioned that in my talks, which is really the shadow self, where all of us can have things that we don't necessarily want to show to the world. What are those things, and have you shown them to yourself? Do you even know about them? And how can you guard against those things when you don't even know about those things? So I think it's very important to actually be aware that I have a temper, or when I go in front of this person, I tend to lie a lot, or when I go in front of this person, I feel very envious. That is the stuff of self-awareness. It's not just knowing about all of the wonderful things about you. It also is knowing about the things that you don't really like about yourself and that you don't want to show to the world. It also is your complexes, your triggers, your motivations. These are all things you are going to know on this journey of self-awareness. And how is that linked to authentic happiness? And so I want to define authentic happiness. Authentic happiness is not a fleeting moment. And I think the word in recent times, happy, is actually been confused with these momentary sort of pleasurable activities that we engage in. We're all really good at that. We're all very good at seeking pleasure and having things that bring joy into our life. But those are moments that we go through. Authentic happiness is a very deep-rooted sense of happiness. It is a resilient state. It is something that actually stays quite steady. That yeah, I'm gonna have bad days, but I'm happy, I'm content. And so sometimes people use that word contentment to describe authentic happiness. That peace of mind, that peace of, being. And it is something that you carry through day to day, not just something you have today and something you won't have tomorrow. Authentic happiness does not only come from a state of just hedonistic pleasures that we engage in. And hedonism sounds like a bit of a scary word, but hedonistic meaning pleasurable activities. So we go out to restaurants, and we go travel, and we go on holidays, and we meet our friends, and we meet our family. These are all very pleasurable activities. But authentic happiness is rooted in far more than that. There's a sense of meaning that you must have. But in order to have meaning, you need to know that thing that is your calling. What is the calling that you have? And that you cannot know unless you are self-aware of. Authentic happiness is rooted in deep relationships, intimate relationships. And we cannot have that unless we realize what we bring to the dynamic that actually might be hurting that relationship. Authentic happiness cannot happen without a state of flow, where you lose time and space and place and you just are feeling so engaged with everything around you. That state of flow is a life of engagement. And that engagement cannot happen unless you know what is it that really brings you to life, right? There's family that is going to ask things of you. There is culture, there is popular culture, there is social media, religion. These are all values that we are being told and taught since the time that we are born. And so who we are is not necessarily clear to us. And that's okay, because you are supposed to develop, strong abilities to exist in this world. You should know how to please people. But when that becomes your only guiding principle is to please people, then you lose yourself. You should know how to sacrifice for people, but then when you end up sacrificing too much of yourself, that's when we get into trouble and you don't exist at all. So self-awareness and authentic happiness are absolutely linked. And so I will start off with that. So let's talk a little bit about why you should be self-aware besides authentic happiness. So I've told you that self-aware people are happier, they're more engaged, they have better relationships, they are better leaders. Self-aware people make better partners, they make better leaders, they make better parents, they make better community members. And so when you are aware of the things that you are bringing to our dynamic, you are just far more able to say, I made a mistake here, I'm going to go apologize to my child. Or I made a mistake there and I really lost my temper, so I'm going to go talk to my colleague and see if I can make that right. When you don't have self-awareness, guess what's in control? Our ego. And we talk about spirituality and we talk about religion, but sometimes these things can be so disconnected. Religion is far more than praying 5 times a day and fasting and following the 5 pillars and, the principles of Islam or whichever religion it is that you follow. But religion is a way of living, it's a way of being, it's a way of being in the world. It is not helpful to the world if you are, being rude to everyone around you and then you just go and you pray. It's really about how do you find both. It is important for you to live the principles of your religion, but it is also important for you to play that out in your day-to-day. And sometimes, when we have had an upbringing that might be difficult, when we had parents maybe that weren't self-aware and they had parenting that was harsh or critical or just not very engaged, we can sometimes learn some patterns, some ways of being that actually are not consistent with who we are. Let me give you an example. So let's just say there's a husband and wife, and the wife and husband both come from very different families, they both come from very different upbringings. Now, the wife feels that the husband is, at work, or maybe the husband thinks the wife is at work, whichever one you want to look at it. The partner thinks the partner is at work and not giving too much attention to the other. Now, one way to do that is be passive aggressive, or I'm not talking to you, and since you're not talking to me, I'm not going to talk to you. That is not a self-aware person. When you become passive aggressive, when you become aggressive, when you become critical, when you become harsh, when you become unkind, when you become uncompassionate, that's probably because a need of yours is not being met. But usually we take it out on the other person and we say it's your fault. It's your fault that I'm feeling this way. That is not self-awareness, guys. Self-awareness is when you say, you know what? A need of mine is not being met, and I wonder what that is. Let me sit with that for a second. I feel like I need some attention. I feel like I don't feel seen by my partner. I don't feel he or she hears me. I have so much stress that I'm worried about. Let me think about all the different stressors that are going on in my life. I'm worried about my work, I'm worried about my mother, I'm worried about my children, I'm worried about my bills, I'm worried about all these things. Okay, that's a lot on my back. So it's obvious that I'm feeling a lot of stress. And you know what? I probably took my stress out on my partner in my need for attention, in my need for care, in my need for affection. I went about it in the wrong way. So let me go back and try that again and say, listen, I feel really stressed right now and I really need to talk to somebody. And I just want, 30 minutes of your time where it's undivided, where you're not looking at your phone, and where we are with each other and we are talking to each other, eye to eye, heart to heart, ear to ear, okay? That is a self-aware person, because they were able to identify all the different pressures that they were going through. They were able to own their feelings and say, oh, okay, well, I was a little bit rude there. They were able to then try to go repair that with that person. So that is what a self-aware person will do in a relationship. And that plays out in every area of your life. Whether you're a parent, there are times when I've gone and apologized to my children because maybe I had a bad day at work. Or I've gone and apologized to my colleagues because, you know what, I was a little bit short in that meeting. Let me just apologize, that was rude, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disrespect you. Owning your stuff, because you're aware of your stuff. And in Islam, they say guard against, right? You only can guard against something when you are aware of that something. And also in Islam, we talk about that the biggest battle you will fight will be with the one that is against your ego. And in that ego battle, how can you fight a battle when you don't know what you're up against? That is self-awareness, is really knowing some of the things that we just don't want to know about ourselves, but we own, okay? We own it. And so that's what I want to say about why. Now, let me share a fact with you guys, which is when asked about whether or not people felt they were self-aware, 95% of the people reported that they were self-aware. In all truth, and when they did their rating scales and qualitative and quantitative measures, only 10 to 15% of the people that were, surveyed were actually self-aware. Now, this is a huge gap. So that means a lot of the people that might be watching this today will think that they're self-aware, but they actually are not so self-aware. And so we just need to know that it is not an easy thing to do. It is not an easy thing to be. It is not an easy thing to look at yourself in the mirror and say, where are all the places where I feel I maybe needed, held a grudge, or my ego might have been taking the driver's seat, or I was a little bit harsh, or I'm a little bit envious, or I tend to lie, or I tend to lose my temper. It's not easy to say these things. So self-awareness is not an easy ask or task. The highest, sort of levels of self-awareness and spirituality is for people who really are in command of that ego. You can only be in command of that ego and of those emotions when you are aware of those emotions and of that ego. So I just want to say that maybe a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't need to listen to this because I am already self-aware. Chances are you probably are not as self-aware as you think you are. So that's what the research shows. So I'm just going to say that. So let me tell you what self-awareness is not. It is not a place you arrive. So I've been doing therapy, I've had coaches, I read a lot, I've gone through a psychology program, I've gotten my doctorate in psychology, I've been practicing psychology for 15 plus years. So you would think that I'm self-aware and I need to now be okay with it. It doesn't work like that. With every journey of your, every stage and phase of your life, something else is going to be asked of you. You are going to evolve, you are going to change, your struggles will look different. Me being the mother of one child is very different from me being a mother of 4 children. Me being a leader of 3 people is going to be very different than me being a leader of 53 people. So different asks and are going to be made of you in different stages of your life. And you might realize different things about you because the struggle or the battle might be bigger. All of us have gone through a year of COVID. No one knows what to do with COVID. Our parents certainly didn't know. We didn't get the book on what to do in a pandemic. And even if we did, we wouldn't know what to do with that book because none of the rules applied. All of a sudden, we had a paradigm shift. We were living in a totally different, like, alternate reality. And so we needed to anchor ourself where? In ourself. How can you anchor yourself in yourself when you don't know who you are? When you don't know what your values are? When you spend so much time in the external world, and by the way, guys, it is not easy in today's world. When we have a smartphone in our hands and we have Netflix and we have all sorts of external distractions and attractions, it is not easy to sit and be with ourselves. Remember the days when we used to sit at the stoplight and maybe the only thing we might be listening to is our radio, right? That's, well, maybe I just gave away my age, but that's the only thing we had. We were listening to music, maybe, right? And so now we are on our phones, we're answering emails, we're doing, looking at social media, constantly flooded with noise. Guess what, guys? No one can see the bottom of a river or a lake if the water is moving around, right? If the lake is still, you can see to the bottom, oh, I see the fish, and oh, I see the stones, and oh, I see the floor of the lake. But if I throw a stone in it, and if I throw lots of stones in it, the water starts to move, and now you don't have any visibility as to what's happening. We are like that. When there is so much noise in our mind, and we can't still ourselves long enough to sit and pray or to meditate or to do dhikr or to do whichever meditation works for you. If I ask you, can you do that for a minute? Just close your eyes and focus on your breath. Don't worry, I won't ask you. I won't ask you now. But if I ask you to do that, would you be able to? Or would your mind be like, oh, what's happening on Instagram? Oh, did I cook that food? Oh, I need to call that person. Oh, I needed to answer that email. This is all that's happening. How can you have any access to what's happening here when all of this is going on? So it's not easy in today's world, and it is not a destination. So that's my long answer to what it is not. Just because you're done the work, oh, I was in therapy 3 years ago and I really learned a lot about myself and I feel like I'm really self-aware. It doesn't work like that. You know, prophethood was given to the prophet at the age of 40. He was a beautiful human being from the moment he was born, right? So why 40? Why not before that? Why not at 30? Why not at 20? Because every stage and every age will bring something different to you. It will bring something, an awareness that you didn't have before. So my teenager has an awareness that my 6-year-old does not have. And when she's older, she will have something different. So self-awareness is ongoing. So just want to make that clear. So what are some of the things that you do need to do? So that was one of the questions, which I'm going to now answer, which is, what are some of the things we can do to start this journey? And I will say again and again, it is a journey, guys. It is a journey, a lifelong journey, a very difficult journey. So what is the first thing you're gonna need, which is not the first thing, it's like 3 things in one. I call it the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps in a pod of the inner journey. And the 3 Ps are persistence, patience, and painfully honest, being able to be painfully honest with yourself. It hurts. It hurts to admit things about yourself that you don't really feel you're proud of. It hurts to admit that you are always late and that you never keep your word when you're supposed to show up on time. It hurts to admit lots of, that you lose your temper with your children. It hurts to admit these things. So you're gonna need to be painfully honest with yourself. Persistence, patience, and being painfully honest. Persistence because you're gonna need to make a commitment here. This is not something you do on the weekend and, oh, I read a book and I journaled. No, this is an ongoing thing. If I get really, really upset with someone at work, then I come home and I say, wow, what just happened? Where was that? This big reaction, where did that come from? I didn't even see that coming. And then thinking, what made that happen? What was going on around me? What was my insulin level at that time? Because sometimes it's not just about our emotions. It's that we didn't eat, or we didn't sleep, or something's on our mind, or our mother called us and she's not feeling well. It's all of these things. And I said, okay, you know what? I was really tapped out at that time. And so I took it out on this person. So sitting with whatever comes that day, that's a lot, that's like a really big commitment. So you are gonna need persistence. You are gonna need patience. Patience, because the truth does not reveal itself like this, right? You have to keep going at it. And there are months and months that I have sat with certain questions. And the most important thing that you can do is to ask yourself the questions. Ask yourself questions. Why? Don't ask yourself why questions. What happened in that scenario where I actually acted that way? What happened before that scenario where I acted that way? What are some of the things I need to work on? What did I learn from this COVID that just is, happening around the world right now? What did I learn about myself? What did it teach me? What did it teach me that I needed more of? What did it teach me that I needed less of? These are some of the questions. But you sit with that every day and you leave the questions out. The answers will reveal themselves, but the most important thing is to ask yourself some of these questions. And I have some questions on my journal highlight on my Instagram account. The second thing I'm going to ask, which I've already mentioned, but I'll mention it in this order, is you're going to need to meditate. And I don't call it meditation. I call it awareness training. So I just sit, I focus on my breath, I might listen to what's going on around me, I might look at things around me, but I'm really just focused on this moment, and I'm building a muscle. When you meditate, you build a muscle in your frontal lobe, okay? This frontal lobe is the thing that is called the executive center in our brain. When that executive center is in command, we don't act impulsively. So the next time you fire off a WhatsApp message, you're like, should I send that? I'm not going to send that. The frontal lobe is also the seat of our observer self. So you start to see that, oh gosh, this person cut me off on the road, but you know what? I'm not going to give him my energy. I only have like this much energy left in the day, and I ain't going to give it to him. So you start to observe yourself and see, ooh, you really get agitated when you're around this girl, or you really feel so nervous around this one and this one. So you start to watch yourself. That meditation is going to be absolutely critical, guys. That's like going to the Olympic athlete and saying, like, you need to have a physically fit body. But he's like, no, I'm going to make it to the Olympics. I'm going to read lots of books. I'm going to watch lots of YouTube videos. I'm going to watch Dr. Saliha on Instagram, and I'm going to make it to the Olympics. Nope. You've got to meditate. You've got to have a physically fit body to make it to the Olympics. In order to be self-aware, you've got to have a fit mind. And that fit mind is, one of the ways you do that is building the muscle through meditation. You know what? When I first started meditating, guys, it was like 10 seconds. I went to my sister, and she can like meditate for hours and hours and hours, and I just don't know how she does that, but God bless her. She can meditate on behalf of half the village here. But for me, I went to her and I said, I feel like my mind is all over the place. I feel like my thoughts are all over the place. And I went to her and I said, how can I stop? How can I stop this? She said, just start with 10 seconds. And so I started with 10 seconds. And just like that, I was like, okay, I'm done meditating. And so for those of you who pray 5 times a day, or pray however many times a day, try to build that in, where you just sit for the last 1 minute and you just center yourself, anchor yourself, ground yourself in your body, and then get on with it. Start with 1, build up to 5. That's it. We just need 5 times a day if you can, and that makes 30. Voila, you're done. That would be it. And the third thing I'm going to say in the next 6 minutes, I'm going to try to give you all of these things, is spend time with yourself. No, you don't get to take a phone with you. You have to be alone. I left my phone in an office today, in one of my offices at the Lighthouse, and then one of the clinicians actually went into that office and started doing a session, so I couldn't get my phone. And then I was like, well, what do I do with myself now? How do I move? How do I think? Like, it really, I would just encourage you to turn your phone off just for 10 minutes and just see how that feels. We don't know how to be with ourselves. We don't know how to sit and look out the window and sip a cup of tea and let our mind wander. We don't know how to do that. How are you supposed to have a relationship with yourself when you don't hang out with yourself? Remember that husband and wife example that I gave you? They have to spend time with each other to know each other. You have to spend time with you in order to know yourself. Not you with your phone, not you with your book, not you with your friends, you by yourself. People are like, how do you do that? Go be in nature. It's easier to be in nature and sit by yourself. Go sit on the beach. You know, yes, you can still do that. I know it's hot, but go in first thing in the morning or go later at night and just be with yourself. What do I do when I'm with myself? Nothing. Just spend time with yourself. How was your day? What did you like about your day? What did you not like about your day? What did you learn from your day? You know, something you would ask your friend or something you would ask your partner. These are some of the things you need to hang out and ask yourself, but we don't do that. The fourth thing I'm going to say is work in a journal. It can be a values journal. It can be a gratitude journal. It can be a daily journal. It can be a dreams journal. I'm big fan of dreams. You know, we spend half of our life, not half, a third of our life sleeping. And that means we're spending a third of our life dreaming. And God doesn't do anything in an arbitrary way. Like, everything has a reason. And so why are we dreaming? What is my unconscious and my psyche trying to tell me? You don't have to make sense of it. Don't try to Google what does, snake mean and what does chair mean. It doesn't matter. Just write. And all of a sudden you start to see some themes. And if you say you don't know what you're dreaming about, you just haven't paid attention. And so usually, like, dreams will show up like, I don't remember what I dreamed about, but I dreamt about, but I remember seeing a red ball. Journal, red ball, and move on. That's it. And then tomorrow your psyche says, this person is listening. And tomorrow you might remember a scene. I remember kicking a red ball to my friend. Write it down. Build it. Build that conversation with yourself. And the dreams are a way you converse. So you can journal about your dreams. Journal about whatever. I have lots of journal prompts. And I have a YouTube, an IG on journal as well. And then I only have like 3 minutes left. I would really say take some psychometric tests, take the MBTI, take some of these online tests, but don't think that that is the only truth you have. If I took the Myers-Briggs personality test, which I did when I was 18, it is very different than what it is now. It would be very different than what it is, and every life stage will throw something different at you. Number 6, I would say ask trusted friends. I made a video about the dinner of truth. Ask your friends, I really am working on self-awareness. And if you could change one thing about me, or if you could give me some feedback that it's a little bit hard for you, please be honest with me and tell me what annoys you about me or what you think that I could improve on. And your friends will tell you, and they will be honest. Don't get defensive, and don't be like, well, no, I don't really do that all the time. No, this is about you improving yourself, and you have to take some difficult feedback. And then the last thing I would say is that if you are curious about this journey, then engage in insight-oriented therapy. Not all therapy is created equal. CBT, ACT, DBT, there's so many different therapies out there. But insight-oriented therapy, which is usually psychoanalytic or Jungian or depth psychology or something like that, they ask these types of questions and they make you wonder about some of these things. So that is something that you can actually work on and consider having an insight-oriented therapist. Actually, I'll say one more thing because I have 1 more minute. I would also say that do exercises that connect you to your body. A lot of our truth sits in our body. We think our mind is our master, but it isn't. Guys, our intuition, they call it gut intuition. Why? It's because it sits in our body. Our body has senses. But what's happening now, we're on Zoom all the time and we're on social media all the time, that we're literally disconnected to our body. Ground yourself in your body. These exercises that you do when you're in your body, when you pray, if you are praying 5 times, however many times, if you pray and you have a physical movement involved in that, really feel that. Really go down, and when you bow down, really connect to the earth. And use that as a way to ground yourself in your body and anchor yourself into the earth and into, and just feeling more grounded, because we're all sort of floating up here and we're losing a sense of ourselves. We're losing a place in ourselves. So I really would recommend doing some embodied work. That will actually help you. So those were my thoughts about self-awareness. Like I said, it's not an easy journey to be on, but it is the most magnificent journey to be on. And someone here said that I get bored by, when I spend time by myself for 5 minutes. Well, that's you saying that I don't like being with myself. And then we cannot expect other people to want to be with us if we don't even like being with us. So when you become an interesting person, an interested person, when you are alone, then all of a sudden the world opens up to you and you become an interesting person to other people. When you start being curious about yourself, other people start to see you differently also. So it is an inside out process. Parenting is an inside job, self-awareness is an inside job, and happiness is an inside job. Thank you guys for being with me. I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. I'll be here next week also. So I look forward to seeing you.